biggest challenges I had when I worked in the corporate job was, whilst I was earning, big sums of money,
Hmm.
um, I didn't have the time to spend with my family. And that was a huge thing for me, that I don't want other people to have that same situation. And that's why I find helping people to see what those options are and seeing what the benefits are really important.
Hey, this is Sean. Before we get started with the Meaningful Revolution podcast episode with Jimmy, I have a quick announcement. One, this was an international call, so there will be a couple of times where I hope you'll bear with us as the audio gets garbled, but it gets caught up and is still listenable. And then, second off, if you have any questions or comments, please be sure to subscribe to Apple Podcasts and leave your comments there, and we'll get back to you. So let's get back to the show. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Meaningful Revolution. Today I have my good friend Jimmi Bradbury. He is an international executive business coach and founder of the Online Business Academy and Young Entrepreneurs Academy. His area of expertise is helping people monetize their knowledge, experience, and expertise and create online businesses so that they can earn multiple streams of income and have more time and financial freedom. He calls this his life that they imagine. Jimmy, welcome to the show, and I'm so glad that we're able to do this.
Thank you, Sean. I really appreciate it.
Of course. So could you tell us a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today, monetizing your knowledge for multiple streams, and maybe why this topic's important to you?
Okay, good. Thank you, Sean. I think, first of all, I just love to acknowledge you for the great work that you're doing. I think it's fantastic to be able to bring people together to share what they know and be able to help other people through this fantastic medium of a podcast. So congratulations to you for doing that. I think it's a really awesome episode, and it's a really awesome podcast that you've got. So well done.
Thank you.
So just about me, I suppose, to set the context maybe of trying to answer the question that you've presented, maybe a little bit about my story. I spent 25 years in the corporate world. I grew up in Ireland, and when I graduated from college in the 80s, there was no work in Ireland. So I had to get on the boat and go to England, and eventually got a job down in London working in a big architectural engineering multidisciplinary practice, and worked there for 10 years. And I then went and got posted overseas to Asia, to Hong Kong, to Manila, then up to Los Angeles, where I spent 2 years, and then out to New York to open an office for them in New York, and worked there for 2 years in Manhattan. I then got called back to London to run their international business. And in 2007, we floated it on the stock market in London just before the GFC. And then in 2011, I think much to my dad's disappointment, gave up the big corporate job, being board director on a publicly listed company. And I felt that, working in a corporate job, there were limitations. And even though you're earning a big salary and a big bonus and all the benefits of a car and healthcare and a pension and everything like that, I realized that there were things that were missing in my life. I wasn't quite sure, though, what those things were. So I began a journey really from 2011 when I left to 2017 till actually found out what it is I really wanted to do, which is what I do today. And what I do today is take what I already know, my knowledge and experience, be able to package it in a way that people see value in it, and then share it around the world. And I do it through courses and programs. And for the last 3 years, I've also been coaching people, from all walks of life, Olympic athletes, single parents working from home, actors, singers, CEOs, to do likewise and create online businesses around what they already know, their knowledge and expertise. And I'm just so passionate about it because we're living in a very unique time at the moment where got so much opportunity, but so many people are challenged with the uncertainty and the move or change that's going on in the world. So that's really what I do. And whilst I create my own courses and programs, it's probably now more towards helping other people do exactly as I've been able to do. And
Oh,
I know that
fantastic.
working in a 9 to 5, which I did for 25 years, has huge restrictions where you're trading your time, your valuable time, for money, the paycheck, the salary, the fee. And doing what I do today is just so much more rewarding, not only because it's impacting people's lives, but also, you're able to earn multiple streams of income doing it. And the idea of waking up in the morning and people have paid you because they bought your course and programs when you've been sleeping is just fantastic. So for me, that's huge, and I really enjoy it. Really, really enjoy it. Yeah.
Oh, excellent, excellent. So, um, I've made the jump from corporate America twice in my career, in tech, and then got pulled back for a dream job, and then now I'm doing my dream job, coaching people, and I
Mm.
noticed that so many people are when they get fed up with what they're going on, and here I'm not sure if around the world they've had this term, the Great Resignation. It's something that they've been talking about here in the
Mm.
US. And quiet quitting is another term where people are just time, basically they'll put in their 40 hours a week. They're not going to go the extra mile. They're not going to answer emails at home. And it's either seen as putting up strong boundaries for life work balance, or trying to do the minimum just to get by. And there's a big kind of fight going on there. But I'm curious, like, you're talking about making the jump for yourself, having multiple income streams, taking advantage of this new business environment where everything's digitized and you can, you know, support yourself with digital products. Um, how did that change your like personal relationships and your life outside of work? As a coach, I'm always talking holistically. So, there's the work part where I'm sure there's a lot of benefits for jumping. Maybe you can explain some of those for yourself, and then how did that impact your family and outside the work that you do?
Mm. Sure, sure. Great question, or two questions, I guess. One is how did it impact my family? I think one of the challenges, I think, looking back, because I've got perspective now, is that, and I talk about this a lot, is that one of the regrets, I don't see it, I don't carry regrets, but one of the biggest challenges I had when I worked in the corporate job was, whilst I was earning, big sums of money,
Mm-hmm.
um, I didn't have the time to spend with my family. And that was a huge thing for me, that I don't want other people to have that same situation. And that's why I find helping people to see what those options are and seeing what the benefits are really important. Because now, when I'm doing what I'm doing and have the ability to earn multiple streams of income, a lot of it passive and recurring income, is I get to spend more time with my family, more time with my friends, more time doing the things I love to do. Like living here in Australia, I can kite surf every day, I can swim every day, but I could never do that in a corporate job. Even if I was earning lots and lots of money, there would
Mm-hmm.
always be the demands of the board, the demands of doing the next deal, the demands of another meeting, and all of these things, um, I can now do because I've got that time and that financial freedom doing what I do. And that then impacts how I live my life. And I think for me, that's been a huge shift and a huge benefit doing what I do. In terms of the work, yeah, there's a lot of work in doing creating an online business, but it's not in the strategies and it's not in the tactics. Like I use
Mm-hmm.
this kind of, it's about 20% knowing what the strategies are and tactics of creating an online business. 80% of it is our mindset and what it is we tell ourselves, the stories that we grew up with, the beliefs that we grew up with. And a lot of the coaching that I do is helping people be able to face those issues and then be able to dismantle them, because that's essentially what I've had to do
Hmm.
to get where I am today.
Oh,
And
right on.
um,
Do you have a
that,
couple? Oh, sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, do you have like, what are a couple of mindsets that you had in the corporate world that have needed to shift as you've started your business or are now running your own business?
Sure, sure. I think from from the personal side first before the corporate, I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
I grew up with a couple of things. I grew up with money doesn't grow on trees. There's not enough money. When the reality of it is, there's never been more money today than ever before, and money does grow on trees. You
Hmm.
just got to focus on the trees that the money is growing on, rather than focusing on the money, focusing on the trees that don't have any money.
Hmm.
That was one. I think in the more personal side, I think I grew up with a belief that we shouldn't tell people what we're doing.
Mm.
We shouldn't tell people our own business. And the reality of it is, actually, you can make a connection when you're more vulnerable and more emotional about what it is you do and the challenges you've had. And it actually is a good thing to share what it is you're doing, the challenges you've got, the things you're finding difficult. You don't have to share everything. You don't have to do it complete downward, but it is good to actually share your knowledge, your experience. And I think those were two major things I grew up with.
Hmm.
Like there's many, many others, but those are two like, yeah, yeah. Mm.
I can completely relate to that. Growing up, in the northwest suburbs of Chicago, like my father was a craftsman. He was a carpenter and contractor, and so, and my mom, when I was really young, had some medical bills. Like she was diagnosed with breast cancer, survived, but it impacted the family really negatively financially, and so I had to work through a lot of financial, like money mindsets, kind of like,
Mm.
um, yeah, that it is abundant. It's not something that you need to hoard and save and conserve. Like there are smart moves that you can make to invest in a business, to invest in your education and whatnot. It took me a lot of time to unlearn. And then, of course, self promoting has been one of the biggest things as I've started my coaching business, realizing that you have to. Um, it's not bragging, that it's just, if you're doing it right, it's teaching, it's helping connect people and helping people along the way.
Yeah.
So when it comes to business, did any of your mindsets needed to shift there? Since we talked a couple of personal ones.
Yeah, in the mindset shifts, like probably the biggest one for me was um the when I was in the corporate world, when I was in the 9 to 5 job, a
Hmm.
lot of it was driven by material things, money, pension, all those things that we get when we're in a job, to actually shifting my mindset to money is just a byproduct of helping other people. And
Mm.
you've got to come from the mindset of wanting to help other people first. And in the corporate job, it was always about me and the money. And yeah, all right, yes, of course, it was about the client. And particularly when I was, on the board, it was more about, pleasing the shareholders, making
Hmm.
sure their bottom line was met, making sure that we were making a profit. And it was all driven by that kind of money thing and not the person. Where here with the work I do now, it's totally about the people. It's about helping the people. And the more people you can help, yes, the byproduct of that is money. Yeah, they'll pay you if they see the value in it. And the more people you help, the more money you can make. But it's a
Hmm.
complete switch. And that's a big thing I had to make, a big shift, which, I never really got access into when I was in the 9 to 5 job.
Right on. And something that I talk about a lot about this meaningful revolution of people doing things that they find meaning in. It's often one of the legs of that is doing things in service of other people. So um, I imagine maybe you could explain, was there like a struggle or a shift that happened for you when you transitioned from 9 to 5 to um, entrepreneurship, owning your own business? Were like, did you feel more connected to what you were doing, like it mattered a bit more, or something of that nature?
Yeah, sure, sure. So Sean, when I kind of some context, I lived for 3 years in Manila,
Okay.
and I lived for a year in India. Both of them corporate job, like designing and building buildings, big, commercial buildings in both
Cool.
cities, and setting up offices in India for, the company, because we were servicing big Fortune 500 corporates in building and designing their real estate. And when I was in both countries, I saw firsthand, because I lived there, not one or 10 or 1,000 or 100,000 or a million. I saw tens of millions of people who lived on $1 a day. Like, can you imagine living on $1 a day? And those people are the same as you and me, Sean. They're flesh and blood. They came from the same place. They'll go back, leave this earth in the same way. And I often wondered how I could help them. But I was caught because in the corporate world, I had the money, but I didn't have the time.
Mm-hmm.
And now I've got the time and I've got the money, so that a huge portion of what I earn, I give back those people in various organizations that I've set up. And for
Awesome.
me, that makes a huge impact on people's lives. So not only am I impacting people by helping them take their knowledge and experience and create an online business, I'm also giving back to help people in a way that, when you give in that kind of scale, um, you're able to impact so many people, and that for me has been a huge impact on my life because, yeah, we go to holidays in India and we go on holiday in Philippines and places like that. But I think sometimes when you're in that kind of transition of a holiday, you don't actually get to see and
Mm-hmm.
live with some of these people. And that really kind of impacted me, seeing people live on $1 a day. Like, just, most of them are actually really happy people, really, really happy people,
Mm-hmm.
um, because they knew nothing else. But if you can help them go from $1 a day to $2 a day, that's 100% increase in their income. And I've got the ability, in what I do in this kind of online world, you've got the ability to do that.
Yeah.
Because I don't need the money. I don't need the money, but those people need it a lot more than I do. So that's been a huge shift for me. So, that has really kind of driven me to do more and more of this.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's amazing. Do you have a couple organizations that you work with, or you said you started some? Like, could you explain a little bit about
So there are
that?
a couple of organizations, and I'm in the process of setting up of my own, in 3 locations, which means one in India and one in Africa, because I think, those are the places that I really wanna try and get in and help as many of those people as possible. Yeah.
Awesome. That's
Mm.
amazing. Cool. Well, keep me posted. I'd love to share if it's open for people to also pitch in and help. Like, I'd love to
Sure.
support that because that's, I think, a good amplifier out in the world. We need a lot more
Yeah.
of that. So,
Mm.
thank you for that work. That's really awesome.
Thank you so much. Yeah. My
Yeah.
pleasure. Mm.
So I'm curious, as
Yeah.
you've been helping people, and you started this awesome organization that's helping people even more, right? Um, are there any? Could you explain, or do you have any stories about times where you've maybe struggled or had to face some challenges as you were either figuring out how to help people more or scale?
Yeah, sure, sure. So I left the corporate world in 2011. I came down to live in Australia. And around the time of 2017, three things happened to me that had a massive impact on my life. Number one, for the first time in my whole life, I got into a business, I got into a business venture, which was a restaurant.
Mm,
And it's not an area of hospitality I have a huge amount of experience in, but I got in a joint venture and it didn't work out, and I ended up losing quite a lot of money. That was number one. Number two, like I think what a lot of people go through in life, I got divorced.
mm,
Um, that was a big impact. And number three, probably the biggest impact in my life was that from I went to school with my best school friend, and we went to college school together. Then we went to college together. Then we went from Ireland to England to get a job. We roomed together. We worked together in London. We socialized together. And then I went overseas and he went back to Ireland to run his father's business. And then when I came back from working overseas to head up our international business, the first company we bought was a company in Ireland, which was his business.
Wow.
So we kind of came that full circle. But in 2017, I went to see him in Ireland, as I did every year for 7 years. So from 2010 to 2017. And I saw him in the same place, in the same hospital, every single time. He was in hospital for 7 years. He had a brain tumor. And it was the last time I saw him because shortly after that, he died. And he left behind a beautiful wife and 3 very young children. And I realized that could have been me because, we were the same age. We grew up together. And I use this phrase, which I'm sure you've heard before, called mortality motivation. And the fact that we should be motivated by the fact that we're mortal. We should be more intentional about how we live. And it's up to us to be intentional about how we live, as opposed to just kind of bumbling through life, which is what I had been doing. I'd been lucky, I'd made some money, but I was really bumbling through life. And I realized that of those 3 events, money, losing it, I could make it back again. And I'm making back, 10, 20, 30 fold what I was earning then. That's easy to do. Love, well, you can lose love, but you can make it back again. But one thing you can never make back again is time. And he's dead now, and he can never make back that time for his family, for himself. And when we lose time, we've lost it forever. Unlike everything else, you can lose everything else, frankly, but you can always make it back again. But time and your health, you can't. So for me, that was a huge motivator to actually saying, the clock is ticking now, Jimmy. You need to do something with your life, and you need to do something meaningful. And it's like everything in life. When the student is ready, the teacher will arrive, and that's how I got into the whole area that I'm involved in now. So that's kind of that formation period, yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing those struggles. Those are all individually could be very crushing to someone.
Very much so.
And I appreciate the lessons that you took from it. You always get back money. You can repair relationships and find love, but that time you can't get back. And it really strikes me too that your whole idea of, basically not trading your time for money, your 9 to 5, and having that kind of, I want to call it exponential kind of growth in your career, what you find meaningful is a really, it's a better way to spend your time, one to provide for yourself and your family, but also to make your impact, so I think that's really amazing. So I'm curious now if you're looking around at someone that was a top talent in helping people start a business and you leverage their knowledge to make an impact and live a meaningful life. What would that person look like? What would you look for in that person?
I think for me, it's always going to be, there's 2 parts, isn't there? There's always the 2 sides of the coin. There's always the desire to do it or necessity to do it. But it always starts with awareness. You've got to be aware of this opportunity. And today, even with the pandemic 2020, when people around the world are now online, still very few people are aware of the fact that you can actually take what you already know and create a very successful online business. So awareness is the starting point, but then it becomes, once you're aware, helping people understand it, and then for them to make a decision. And usually people will only make a decision based upon a desire to do it or a necessity to do it. And the desire part is the more difficult of the 2. The desire to do something as opposed to the necessity. So I would look for whether or not, obviously one of those 2 are there, and how much it's impacting lives. Because I think when I work with people, if there is any chance that people can slip back into their comfort zone when challenged with, creating an online business, which, as I said before, is more to do with what goes on in your head, then people will tend to slip back into that kind of comfort zone. And trying to help them stay above that is a big part of what I do. And if it's a necessity because they have to do this, there's no other option, it's an easier route to go. But the desired route is possible too. I think people need to believe in themselves more. They really need to believe that this is something they want to do. And I think for me, belief is a really important thing. When I'm talking to people, believe that they want to do it, because frankly, people can see the opportunity and they can understand it, but sometimes their own limiting beliefs hold them back.
Yep.
So trying to work on those, yeah.
100%. As a coach myself, a lot of what I deal with is, right, I've noticed, especially in the last couple of years, of people that have had their confidence and their belief like shook, like whether it's I'm too old to learn this new job or new skill, or oh, nobody else would hire me because I'm not good enough, or all these types of kind of like limiting beliefs and like esteem, that they can't perform, they can't make it happen. And for me, like, we talk about inspiration on the podcast, and that for me is clarity and a motivation that leads to action. So
Yes.
when it comes to helping motivate people to take action towards what's in their head and turning that into something that has that big impact, do you have a process that you usually use, or could you explain, like, if I was like brand new and like, hey, I want to start, I want to shift out of corporate and do my own thing and make a huge impact, how would you go about maybe advising somebody at a high level?
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me, it's always going to be this question of two dynamics at play: yourself and service. Self or service. Is it about you,
Mm,
or is it about the service you want to give? And we all have this, don't we? We all think about ourselves. And what we need to do is shift from ourself to the service part.
mhm.
Whether it's doing the live video, how do I look, what the background is like, and all of that. With we're thinking about ourselves. We come to do a speech, we talk to a group of people, whether it's 5 people, 50 people, 5,000 people, is because we're thinking about ourselves.
Mhm.
Will I make a mistake? Will I forget my lines? So it's always about ourselves. Whereas in fact, actually, you come to talk to these people, and it's not about the background, and it's not about yourself, it's about the audience you can help. And you have to shift your mindset to that way. So in terms of the process, a lot of it is about focusing on the audience
Mhm.
you can help, where people are, how you can help them with the gift you've got, because we've all got a gift that other people want, need help with, see value in it, and will pay you for it. Everybody has. And it's not a talent that you necessarily had since day one. You could have got it like last year. Like, I've been doing this for 4 years. I haven't been doing it for 40 years.
Mhm.
I've been doing it for 4 years. So just realizing that I've got something, you've got something, and there are people who need that help. But you have to then go out and serve and help them, but also identify who those people are, but being really clear about who those people are. We can't help everybody, but just being super clear about who those people are. And in my process, it's kind of getting really clear on that and zoning in on that specific person
Mm.
that you can help. I use this metaphor of a river to explain the process.
Okay.
I use this metaphor of a river, which is a kind of a really fast river, and you're on one side of the river. And then
Mhm.
on the other side of the river are all these people walking up and down the river who are waving at you, asking you for your help with what you've got. And that's great. And that's great. And you can help those people. But the reality of it is the people who need your help most are the people who are right in front of you who are drowning in that river,
Mm,
and they are putting their hand out to you for the life raft or the ring, and you should be helping those people first because those are the people who need your help most. So zoning in on those people
okay.
is really important in the process because we tend to try and help everybody and we try to do everything. And the reality of it is our nervous system is not set up for abundance. We've got an abundance of opportunities today. We've got abundance of music. We've got with Spotify. We've got an abundance of movies with Netflix. We've got abundance of people we can help, but our nervous system is not set up for that. And what happens is we get overwhelmed because there's just too much music. There's too much movies to watch. There's too many people. What we need to do is really be clear and specific about the people we need. Really about zoning in on that. So moving from yourself to serving specifically the people that you really can help, the people that are drowning in the river. So that's
Right
a
on.
big part of the.
Awesome, awesome. Let's see, it's the next best question. As you've gone on your journey and you've you've created this process and this metaphor for the river, the analogy. Could you list off a couple of folks that have maybe influenced you on your thinking about, starting a business, helping people that are drowning, as you said. Um, are there like two or three people that you've looked to that have really influenced your thinking on this whole process and how you help and give?
Sure, sure. I guess starting with my family, I guess all of I'm the only person who ever worked in a 9 to 5. All the rest of my family, including my daughter now, who's 28 and lives in London, have all owned our own business. So
Oh.
I was the only odd one, and so I guess the influence is there from family. But I think as I moved into this phase that I call my last 4 or 5 years, where my life got transformed, I think it's been people out there who I wasn't really aware of that were talking a language that when I was in the 9 to 5, I kind of understood it. And it was around, how powerful our mind is
Mm,
if we used it in the right way. Um, and, those people out there we know, like Brendan Burchard and Tony Robbins and Bob Proctor and all of these people that have been able to dial into that mindset
hmm
and that personal development. And for me, that was a huge awakening because when people spoke to me about the fact that we don't actually what we got, which is our mind, we kind of use 10% of it. I wasn't quite sure what that other 90% was.
mm,
And it's because, like so many people, and I could talk about this forever in a day, is that I didn't learn these things at school. I
hmm
didn't learn those important things that we need in life. And I certainly didn't learn them in the corporate 9 to 5 job. But when somebody actually started talking about it and I became really interested in it, it just unfold. This is the mind is one of the most powerful things we've got, but we have a choice. We control it or it controls us.
hmm
And if it controls us, that's a very difficult place to live in this world. And when people were talking about this, like the people I've just mentioned, that I guess was for me a huge inspiration because I realized then these people knew how to do this, which was really important. They were talking about it in a way that was interesting and inspiring,
hmm
and that had a huge impact on where I am today. Yeah. Mm.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. It's. And I also I like the word inspiration because it's one thing to know that we need to change. One thing to know that there's a different way of living or going about business or doing, and it's another thing to then create the plan and have the motivation to take those steps, either small or large, towards making that happen. And I think in my coaching practice myself, like a lot of the work is trying to connect people to like why is this shift meaningful to you to shift jobs, to start a business, to start the next phase of your life and do this with some excellence and some trying to drive the edge of your potential to see what happens. I think that's a magical
Yeah.
part. So I'm curious then, with the mentors, with the how you help people, if someone was in the 9 to 5 and thinking about making a move, what would be like 2 or 3 things you'd advise a beginner to start doing today?
Mhm. Yeah. I would probably ask them to do is take a restock of their life and be clear about where they're going and how it is they're going through life, what their goals are, what it is they're trying to achieve. And if it is something beyond working in a 9 to 5, maybe time and financial freedom, looking at ways to be able to do that. Do you really just want to spend most of your life um, earning money to pay the bills?
Hmm.
Or do you want to, because this is a really strange thing, I never really kind of came across my mind until I started getting into the space I'm in now, is that we trade our most valuable asset, our time, for money. Like,
Hmm.
it's an odd thing, isn't it? Trade our
Hmm.
time for money. And a lot of people just do that to pay the bills. Like, is that really the way that we're supposed to live? And I think we need to take that reality check. We need to reflect really, really, truly, and be honest with ourselves. Is that what it is we really want to do with our life? Trade our most valuable asset, time, for money.
Hmm.
And if it's not, then we just got to be honest with ourselves. Is there another way? And like, I'm talking about a way that definitely is another way, but is there other ways as well? And just investigate them, do the research, study them, and see if that's something you want to do. Because one thing is, when we get to the end of our life on our last day and we reflect back, what we should not say is, I wish I had spent less time earning money to pay the bills,
Hmm.
because that's a waste of your life. And you don't have to do that. You really don't have to do that. And I think if I'm fortunate, I'm fortunate that, for me, I caught this late in life. And that's why I think it's so important for the younger people to see this opportunity early on. But then I also reassure myself by the fact that, at my age in the 50s, with the way medical care is going, the way that we're living lives, my dad next year is 90,
Wow.
90. That means, me personally, I've got another 30 to 40% of my life to live again. 30 to 40% of
Hmm.
my life. That's huge. So I actually haven't caught it late in my 50s, but at 50, if I was in a corporate job, I'd be thinking about retiring.
Hmm.
Retiring? Wow, you've got so much more time left to be able to take what you already know, be unselfish about it, and help other people with that knowledge, rather than just kind of going through the motions and getting to the end of your life and regretting a lot of things. So I would talk to them in a way that would point out, we've got a gift. Why don't you think about how it is you could share with other people, do it from your own home, and get paid for it? I would talk to them about that opportunity
Hmm.
specifically. But I would, the big one would be, just take stock of your life, be really honest with yourself, and say, do you really want to spend your most valuable asset, your time, trading it for money
Hmm.
and paying the bills?
Right on. Okay.
Get them to reflect on it. And if the answer is no, then look at what the options might be. But if the answer is yes, fine, no judgment. It's your call. It's your call. I
Yeah.
just don't think that's how we're to spend our most valuable asset, our time, for money. Yeah. I don't think that's why we're here.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I like to think too that with all the uncertainty and turmoil of the pandemic and everything going on in the world now, that I think we had a really unique opportunity like 2 years ago when the whole world kind of slowed down from COVID for people that might have been too busy to realize that they were busy, if you know that phenomenon.
Mm.
They had the time to reflect and to say, like, is this how I want to be as, a partner? Is this how I want to be as a person? Is this how I want to be in my community? And to ask some of those big questions that philosophers have been struggling with over time. Um, but maybe, getting out of that day-to-day rush to think like, what do I really want to do? How do I want to make an impact? What kind of legacy do I want to make? How do I want to be known um, for? And what things I want to project out, and the goodness I want to project out in the world. Um, so I think this is such a powerful topic. So, okay, I'd love to ask you now, if someone was on that path, so they had taken some steps to transition to being more judicious with how they spend their time and building their life and lifestyle around that. Like, if you were in process of um, starting that business, or you had started it and you're like one foot in both worlds, what advice or habits or things would you advise somebody to do in that scenario?
For me, it will be taking action right away, deciding to do it, rather than one day. We all have one days in our life, and one day never happens. It's actually just taking action and doing it now. And that's really just about, establishing what is it you've got a passion around. What do you enjoy doing? What do you feel you're good at doing? Meaning a skill set. How
Mm-hmm.
do you think you could help other people? And we do that a lot through volunteering, but through hobbies. But then if you want to turn it into a business, then it's about what is it that people can pay you for. And I've coached so many people now that the most unusual things come, you know, woman, single parent with 4 children who's this art and way that she designs cupcakes, to um, Olympic swimmers teaching people how to swim. Like, we've all got these gifts.
Mm-hmm.
Other people want them. And it's a question of just getting out of our own way, taking action, and saying, I know that I've got this hobby. I know I've got this passion. I know I've got this skill set. I know I've got this profession. I know I've got something, because everybody does, that could help other people. And you're doing it already. Most people are doing it already in their lives. They're
Mm-hmm.
just not seeing it as something maybe they could turn into something that will help people all around the world, because we're doing it, yes, in our community, we're doing it locally, we're doing it in our families, but now we've got this technology that connects us all around the world, which we found in the pandemic. Now
Mm-hmm.
you can help people beyond just your local community or your family or your local town or city, and help people all around the world. And you also can get paid for it as well. But impact is the huge thing. And if nothing else, that's a legacy. That's a great
Mm-hmm.
legacy you can leave, because that one person maybe on the other side of the world who you've impacted because you've shared what you know, like, that's a great legacy to leave behind. So I would suggest they really start taking action. And now more so than ever, because we're going through this huge transition, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
We're moving out of a pandemic, but there's a lot of people stuck in the pandemic of 2020. There's a lot of people still back there, and they're still maybe self-reflecting, and they're still going through this reset, when the reality of it is, and we learned this, what we're going through at the moment is the same as has happened so many times in history.
Mm-hmm.
The last time was in 2008 with the global financial crisis. 4 years, 4 years, and out of that came companies and people that we'd never heard of before. Nobody had heard of the iPhone. Nobody had heard of Instagram. Nobody had heard of Airbnb. Nobody had heard of Uber. Whether or not you agree with those, that's what was happening during that 4 year period. And
Mm-hmm.
it's the same thing that's happening today. And if you want to be part of this new world, you need to take action today and start moving forward, because when this new world really gets into motion, and that new world can be online, absolutely, or this new world can be, and we need to accept this, people are not going to go back and work in their jobs like they did before. They're not going to
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
People and employers in particular need to understand this. It's not going to happen. So don't get frustrated about it. Work around it, because my daughter's generation, the millennials, which is the next generation that's now becoming more dominant in decision making and money making, my daughter's generation, the millennials, in the main, not all of them, will not work the 9 to 5 job. They will not go in and work with an employer. So this transition that we're going through now is getting amplified by what's happening, but it was already in motion.
Hmm.
And employers getting frustrated because their employees are not coming back into work. It's not going to happen. So accept it, because we're part of a new world. And you need to be part of that new world, because if you're not, you're going to get left behind. Like in the 1900s, if you didn't get into a piece of metal that had got 4 wheels because you still wanted to ride on the pony and trap, you were going to get left behind.
Yep.
It's exactly the same thing that's happening. And that's history. History is teaching us this. So you need to take action. So that's what I would say. Take action now for the new world.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I can't agree with you more that now is the time where you're either going to put the effort and have the success after we get things a little bit more settled. Um, and that takes getting over that feeling of being constrained, we had when we're all, hunkered down in our houses the last couple of years. It's going to take
Yeah,
more than just taking care of your wellness. Like right now is the time to find that performance edge
yeah,
and to really and performance edge that's meaningful to you. That if you're going to do something, I think I could sum up a lot of what you said with, time is our most valuable resource. If you're going to do anything, make sure it's something that is meaningful to you. That's something that matters. Something that I think for me has service to the world. That is helping people, helping bring people up, and yeah, and the time to make that impact and mark is right now. So get into
totally,
motion. Um, Make sure that you're making your moves because you don't want to be left behind.
totally. And I think we've all got this opportunity. Yours is a great example. You're setting up a podcast that's doing really well, and now we're in a place where one individual, just with time, can take on the big television stations, the big radio stations in terms of an audience.
Hmm.
That one person can do that.
Yeah.
And that can be amplified across so many different things in our lives now. We don't need to wait for permission. We just need to step up, start these things, serve other people, help other people, build the audience like you're doing. And we don't have to feel as though we have to work over a big company again. Like, if we think about this, Sean, in terms of history, working in a company is a very, very, very young thing. It's only been going for about 200 years. But
Hmm.
in the context of 70,000 years, in that small little period of 200 to 250 years after the Industrial Revolution, people worked for companies. Before that, everybody worked for themselves. They just happened to work in the farm or on land, but they worked
Hmm.
for themselves.
Yep.
So we're kind of just coming out of that very short period of history when we worked for things called companies, to, to being back working for ourselves, setting up podcasts, and then taking on the companies, and in many cases outpacing the companies themselves. And the companies need to wake up to that as well.
Yeah.
Those directors sitting around board tables and being oblivious to what change is actually going on in the world today. Yeah.
Yeah, thankfully we can be nimble as a smaller enterprise to make that happen. So, um, yeah, 100%. So, one last question to wrap it
Mm,
up.
mm, mm,
Curious, what habit or habits do you have in your day, week, or monthly life that help
mm.
you keep on purpose, help you connect to the impact and the meaningful work that you're doing, helping people um, monetize their knowledge, but more importantly, have a huge impact with and leave that legacy that they have.
Sure, sure. Um, For me, just kind of set the scene, the context. I've been fortunate to, in my life, have only one medical condition, and that is, hereditary. The doctors tell me, which is high blood pressure. And over the last few years, I've managed to substitute my medication for what I call meds, and that's my habits of the day, which is mindset, mindset, and I meditate. E is exercise, D is diet, and S is sleep. And for me, those are absolutely paramount in me doing the work I do today. So meditate 20 minutes every day in the morning. Exercise, it's physical exercise, emotional exercise, managing my emotions, and mental exercise as well as for me spiritual. S or D is diet, making sure that I'm eating good, proper food, and sleep, which is really for me the most important, getting 7 to 8 hours sleep every day. Because I think this this saying that you can live on 4 or 5 hours sleep,
Mm.
yes, physically, but mentally and emotionally, no. And all of the studies show it doesn't work. Physically, yes, but probably over a period of time, no. But yeah, in the short term, for 4 to 5 hours sleep, you can, but not mentally. You get triggered. I do anyway. You get triggered really quickly,
Mm-hmm.
and emotionally, and also mentally. So sleep is really important. So those four things, with a morning routine and an evening routine, evening, just wind down and plan the next day. And then morning is the meditation and the exercise. That those have been absolute key. And, just turning up even when things are not kind of going your way, being consistent, being disciplined. Like in life, in anything we do, to succeed, there's no silver bullet. Yeah, you can have the talent, you can have the coaches, but at the end of the day, you do have to have the habits, and you need to have the right habits, and you need to be implementing those habits on a
Mm-hmm.
regular basis and being consistent about that. And then that sets you up for having a really good opportunity. The problem is, and I speak for myself, is prior to, when I was in the corporate world, really bad habits, flying around the world corporately, sleeping 2 or 3 or 4 hours sleep in a different side of the world, eating hotel food, spending time on planes, all of that. Or even when I was in the country, I was, bringing sandwiches into work, or I was going out
Mm-hmm.
on a corporate lunch, or all of that. It wasn't exercising good habits. And most importantly, kind of coming back to what I said earlier, I wasn't intentional about it. You need to be intentional about how you live your life,
Yeah.
because nobody else is going to be intentional about it. Otherwise, we just bumble through life with no intention, no goals, nothing in place. And, if you want to do serious things, you want to have impact, you need to be intentional about it. And starting with that intention is really important.
Absolutely. But I wanted to share one thing with sleep that I always tell my clients is there's a reason why sleep deprivation is considered torture under the Geneva Convention. So quit
Oh,
torturing yourself. That's you get in trouble for that internationally. I love so much of living a meaningful life is having an intention behind it. And so I loved how you were able to wrap all that down. And the meds habits, meditate, exercise, diet, and sleep is a really great place to start you're feeling like if you're not feeling connected to your life, right? You can usually find if an improvement in one of those will help you kind of just feel better, and then that snowballs into more intention. So I just wanted to thank you for that, Jimmy. Before we wrap up, first off, thank you so much for being here. This is really amazing. I know so many people will be inspired from all the little tips and tricks that we've been able to pick up throughout our conversation today. Most importantly, guys, take action. Get in motion. It'll be messy, and that's fine. But now is the time to get going so that you can ride this next wave that we think is going to be coming. So, before we go, what's the best way for people to follow up with you or to learn a little bit more about what you're doing, so I can post that in the notes below the episode.
Right, great. So thank you for that, Sean. My website is jimmibradbury.com. So Jimmy's a little bit unusual spelling, my mom. So it's Jimmy, Jimmi, Bradbury, Bradbury. On social media, my preferred platform, which I love, is LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. And I'm also on Facebook and Instagram at Jimmi Bradbury. And there's lots of good information on my website, courses, program. Get in touch with me there or on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Excellent. I hope you do check out Jimmy and all the great work that he is doing and the impact that he's had. I'm so excited to again have had this conversation with you. Thank you so much, man. Well, hopefully we'll talk soon. And with that, guys, we'll see you in the next episode. Take care. I loved this episode of the Meaningful Revolution podcast with Jimmy because, we don't talk about money enough, or as casually as we did today. It kind of makes people feel a little bit awkward sometimes, and at least I know it does for me. It's something I've worked through, and we shared that a little bit. But if you're taking notes, which I hope you were, a couple of things that I took away from this episode are that we need to continually be figuring out what works for us and what calls to us, and that gift that we all have, that perspective that we have, that we can really help serve out in the world, right? The second thing is to be curious. As always, it's something I'm always talking about on the podcast and everything that I do, because I think it's so important to be asking why. Thirdly, you want to assess your life, you want to find your gift. And those are the three things that Jimmy ended with. But at a grand scale level, I think it's really important also to be reminded that the things that you do love, the things that call to your soul, that fire in your belly, you can start doing today, right? And the time to do it is now. It's today. It's before everything goes sideways. It's before you're ready. It's when it feels the most messy, because when we get into that momentum, when we get into action towards those things, towards that level of service, towards that calling that we all have inside of us, that's when we see a lot of meaning generated in our lives. That's when we feel our most alive, our most, adventurous. And I want that for everyone. I really wish that for everyone who listens here. So if you are like, I want that too, but I don't know how, I want to share that I am a certified high performance coach, and that's all I do. That's my bread and butter. That's how I sustain the podcast, right? That's what makes me able to sit here and talk to you, over the course of an hour, and to share these amazing folks with you. So if you are looking to reach that next level, or start that business, or make that big life change, or figure out how to feel better every day, or to really find that meaningful connection in your life again, I have a free one-on-one strategy call that you can apply for, right? So high performance simply is beating what's ever normal in your life without destroying your relationships and your body. And it feels like the full confidence, the full joy, the full presence of being your best self every day. So that's the high level things that we're trying to get there. But we have a science-based process that goes through 5 different areas on this particular strategy call, on how and it's this perspective that can help you diagnose where you might be rocking, where you might be avoiding things, where you might be showing up a little bit scared, or that things that you've just become comfortable with, right? And this process will help you identify that, help you get to the next level there. But this one-on-one strategy call will help you figure out, and you'll leave with 5 habits to help you advance in your life and whatever you do. So people love this call, and I'm trying to gather folks that have commented on this before, so we'll have that in a future episode. But ultimately, I've had clients that have started businesses. I've had clients that have found more time with family, that have changed their careers in a way that gives them more time and gives them more abundance to provide. And it's really amazing, right? And I want that amazing experience for you. I want, my biggest wish for you is that you live an inspired, meaningful life, doing something that you love, just like we were talking about, getting in the game, doing something you love, serving at a higher level, and high performance is a tool that can help you get there. So if you are interested, below wherever you're watching this podcast, you can go to seanbutler.com/coaching and apply for that one-on-one session. And what that'll be, it'll be like a 15-minute survey. And basically I'll be filtering out to see if maybe you should see a therapist, if maybe we're not going to jive well, so there's a fit component, but mostly just to make sure that I can help you, because I only have a limited amount of spots for this. And you fill that out, you schedule your 1 hour, hopefully there's no wait list, as these there's only so much time that I have open for this. And then we go for an hour on this call, and we'll get into your life. I'll have some information from that application also on some areas where maybe we can focus to give you the biggest bang for your buck. But at the end of the day, you'll walk out with something custom tailored to your life. You'll walk away with high performance habits to help you reach that next level. And at the end of that conversation, if we both think that we can work together and it's right, then we talk about going into that coaching relationship. So this is how I sustain the podcast again. This is how I'm able to get all these amazing guests, and it allows me to live and all that stuff. So I'd love for you, I'd love to help you out. I'd love to make sure you reach that next level. So go to seanbutler.com/coaching, link below wherever you listen to this episode, and we'll get you hooked up. In our next episode, we're going to talk to my good friend, Aaron, and I know you're going to love this. It's another wellness type episode. We talk about a lot of really amazing things. So until then, take care, and we'll see you next time.